And we thank you so much for joining us this morning. We come to you live as we continue our coverage of the memorial ceremonies for former First Lady Rosalynn Carter.
There is a motorcade that has just arrived at the Carter Center here in Atlanta. That is where Mrs. Carter has been lying in repose so that the public could have their opportunity to honor her. We see the casket being carried now to the vehicle that will transport the former First Lady to where a private memorial service will be held this afternoon.
Yeah, they're going to take her body to Glen Memorial Church, Aisha, where they're going to have the ceremony right there on the campus of Emory University, where they will have a special private tribute service happening later today.
And live at the Carter Center right now, our Christy Diaz has been on this story since the very beginning as we continue to watch this procession here. There has been such an outpouring of support. Now, we know that lying in repose ceremony yesterday was from 6 until 10 p.m. We saw parents bringing out their children to show them the importance of this moment and to really learn this part of history. It's like we're flipping a page in a history book, witnessing this, a life, a legacy, passing away at 96 years old, Jonathan.
Yeah, just an incredible legacy. And again, this service that will be happening in just a bit later this morning or this afternoon will be a private service. A number of dignitaries flying here into Atlanta to pay their respects and tributes to the former First Lady. Of course, President and Mrs. Biden expected to be here today, along with a host of other former First Ladies, Michelle Obama, Melania Trump, Mrs. Bush as well being here. A lot of people coming to pay their respects again here for this private service.
And Jonathan, we see on this list here, it is all the living former First Ladies, including the current First Lady. And I think that just shows such a show of support, not even all of them attending with their husbands, but just really showing it's sort of like a sorority or an honor code of sorts. Only they know what that role was like, what it was like to sort of make it your own. There's a quote from Michelle Obama saying that Rosalynn Carter, they shared such a special bonding moment when she told her to truly take that office and make it your own, aside from what your husband does. And we saw Rosalynn do that truly with her passion for especially mental health advocacy, you know, doing the research. And that is truly going to be one of the most major parts of her legacy, really changing the face of mental health here in our society.
Yeah, that was really her legacy, and we talked about that. That's sort of been one of the storylines, is that she sort of transformed the role of First Ladies. She was very much active, not just in the community, but really in some of those cabinet meetings. We talked about that. But as you can see, you're looking live right now here in the city of Atlanta, right there, as her casket is being carried toward where the service is being held. You can see a lot of people there watching as this moment is happening.
And we do see a lot of young people there as well. We do understand that, you know, school times are going to be impacted with this motorcade going through the city and that memorial service. But one of the things that everyone is going to be looking out for today, we do understand that former President Jimmy Carter is supposed to make that drive from their hometown of Plains, Georgia, to come here to Atlanta to be a part of this part of the ceremony where his wife is being remembered, his wife of 77 years. So many people are thinking of him. He entered hospice care back in February, and his family has continued to tell us that, you know, he's doing fine, he's communicating with us, and we do understand that he was with his wife until her final breath on last Sunday, holding her hand as that moment took place.
With her until the very end. A little bit more about this motorcade that you're going to see. This motorcade will start right here at the Carter Presidential Center, of course, and will depart. We're hearing around noon, perhaps a little before noon, and they will continue right there going through John Lewis Parkway toward Ponce, and the motorcade will then turn right and then continue as they get toward Clifton Road, going right to where we talked about on Emory University's campus at Glen Memorial, where that service is set to start a little later this afternoon.
We see the family's pastor, who has been there from the very beginning, and the couple really bonding over that, saying that that is one of the things that kept them together even in the moments that communication failed them. There was a quote from former President Carter this morning saying, if we have our faith and if we're reading scriptures together every night, then how can you have bad communication? And I think it's the love story here that so many people got to witness here, not only their jobs that they did separately during their time in DC, but just really how they poured into the community separately and together. Once they came back here, they could have gone anywhere, but to come back to the Atlanta area, their special ties to Emory, their special ties to Plains, it just speaks so much of how they felt about Georgia.
And Georgia loved them right back. That's that's the thing. We've seen so many people love the Carters, and we've heard so many special stories about Mrs. Carter this week, just about how real she was, how authentic she was, but also how active she was. First Lady who, even after leaving the White House, perhaps got even more involved, and a lot of that involvement happened at Emory University, a university that she decided, along with her husband, to partner with back in the early 1980s after leaving the White House. They wanted to continue a lot of the work they had started in the White House, and they said, hey, we want to find a university that we can really continue some of these initiatives, and that's what you saw. But again, you're looking live if you're just joining us here online right now at the motorcade that will be starting soon, momentarily, ahead of the private service, tribute service happening at Glenn Memorial on Emory University's campus. Mrs. Carter's casket is there, inside the hearse there, and the motorcade is looking like it will be on its way, heading toward the chapel, and you see many people, family, friends, onlookers, just paying their respects.
And it's really a somber moment, but when you reflect on the life of a woman who lived to be 96 years old and just the list of accolades that we've highlighted here just since her passing on Sunday, it really makes you stop and think about the impact that you have. What are you doing with the time that you have here? Just all the things that we've heard, and just her heart of service, and really a heart for caregivers as well. She turned into a caregiver for her own husband at one point. So there are so many people who related to her just on a human level, far beyond politics.
And that's what's special, and that's really the human stories we've heard over the last few days. People not talking so much about policy or what she did while she was at the White House with her husband, but really the things she did after. People talking about, hey, even when they would run into her in Plains, the hometown that she loved so much, she would just talk about fashion. She would talk about what was going on. She would just have regular conversations, and I think that authenticity is what really is part of her legacy, at least what a lot of her friends have said.
And just really, just being so down to earth, and just even the decision to go back to your hometown, what that can mean for a lot of people, just having the opportunity to see you at a church service every Sunday, knowing that you were, a former First Lady and your husband was the leader of the free world. And I think for us, it just really humanizes the moment and just really causes us to celebrate and honor Rosalynn Carter.
Right now, let's go to our Christy Diaz. She is live there at the Carter Center. Christy, I know you've been covering this from Americas, now here in Atlanta. What are you seeing out there this afternoon?
Coming and paying their respects. Just a beautiful day.
It is a peaceful moment, a somber moment, as we watched the color guard walk Mrs. Carter's casket out of the walkway, out of the Carter Center, where she had been lying in repose for the public to come pay their respects last night. And this morning, we watched her come up that right side walkway where she came into the Carter Center yesterday, followed by several members of the family that came out and watched as the color guard then loaded her casket into the hearse, and it made a slow circle around this circle of flags. You'll notice the people lining and standing right underneath the flags. These are all Carter Center staff that decided to come outside this morning to honor her and stand here and watch as Mrs. Carter left the Carter Center for the final time, the institution that she co-founded with President Carter. You'll also notice the flags here are all at half staff. President Biden made that declaration back on November 25th, ordering all flags be at half staff, and they will likely stay that way through the duration of all of the events that are planned to honor her life. At this moment, it is still quiet. It is still peaceful. The motorcade has now circled outside of the circle of flags and is holding steady still here on the grounds of the Carter Center, but it is about to head out onto Freedom Parkway and wind its way through Atlanta roads to make its way over to the Glenn Memorial Church on Emory's campus for that service. Surviving children will serve as honorary pallbearers there. Now, I will say this has been a very quiet, peaceful morning here as people have, it's kind of a vibe of reverence. The Carter Center itself is a peaceful place, over 35 acres of lush greenery modeled after Camp David, and the mood this morning has seemed to reflect that, the reverence of what it means for Mrs. Carter to leave this institution that she founded and did such important global work here for so many years, decades really, and quite meaningful and emotional to watch watch her circle around this circle of flags, a flag for each state, and watch that hearse move out for the final time as she exits and leaves the Carter Center for her final time. Guys, back to you.
Chrissy, thank you. We want to transition now to Air Force One as we see President Biden and First Lady Dr. Jill Biden exiting Air Force One here in Atlanta as they get ready to join the motorcade to head to the memorial services for First Lady Rosalynn Carter.
And as we mentioned, Aisha, they are just two of a number of dignitaries who are landing here in Atlanta this morning to attend that service. We know that Vice President Kamala Harris and Second Gentleman Doug Emhoff also expected to be there. I believe they also flew on Air Force One, along with a host of former First Ladies, as you mentioned, arriving here today, from former First Lady Laura Bush, Michelle Obama, Melania Trump. And of course, we're expected to see a lot of our Georgia politicians. You can see Atlanta Mayor Andre Dickens there as well to greet the president, along with, I believe, Senator Ossoff and others, Raphael Warnock there as well. So a lot of our local dignitaries.
A very somber occasion there, but also a celebration as well of a long life, a life of service, a life of humanity, participating in humanitarian efforts all around the world, and just really a moment to just pause and reflect. And we do know some special friends of the Carters. They're sort of passing the torch there with their Habitat for Humanity build to Garth Brooks and his wife Trisha Yearwood. Over the years, they've done several Habitat for Humanity builds. They are on the program under the musical tributes for that private ceremony today. Very close friends of the Carter family. So many people here in Atlanta to take in this private moment.
And speaking of that, being private, this ceremony today that we've gotten to look at the program, and it really really does feel like a family service, a private service. We're going to hear some of Mrs. Carter's favorite scripture passages, some of her favorite songs. As Christy mentioned, her grandchildren will be some of the pallbearers. So it is, while the world is watching this service and everyone's interested in it, it still has a very close-knit, private family feel to it, and I think that's what the Carters really wanted for this.
And it has been a moment here in Atlanta as we get ready to watch President Biden departing from Air Force One to head to the private memorial services there for former First Lady Rosalynn Carter. Again, as we mentioned, another anticipated face will be to see the former President Jimmy Carter come to Atlanta from Plains to make that trip. A lot of people were surprised to hear that that was even a possibility after knowing that he'd entered hospice care himself. But your wife of 77 years, we can't imagine, what he's thinking and what he's going through at this time, dealing with his own health battles. But I think it's such a special moment. We had so many pictures, and you could just see how much he adored her. And he often would say that she's the real politician in this relationship and in this family. And I think that speaks to everything that we've learned about the former First Lady, as she has just really catapulted and took the role into her own and just really did her own thing in a way that will surely leave a lasting impact, just for years and years to come.
In fact, he talked about Mrs. Carter being a part of pretty much every major decision he made, even during his time in the White House and beyond. And so you've got to imagine that he wanted to be here. I'm sure it was his choice of, because as you said, his health is not the greatest right now, declining, but he wanted to be here to say goodbye to his wife. They were together for so many big moments. Again, you're looking live, in case you're just joining us, at Air Force One. President Joe Biden, Dr. Jill Biden, just arriving here in Atlanta as they get ready to make their way to Glenn Memorial on the campus of Emory University for this private, invitation-only service to say goodbye to Mrs. Rosalynn Carter.
And the traffic to make way has been blocked off since 4 o'clock this morning, and that is expected to be the case until 4 p.m. this afternoon. We have all of the closures and how this could impact as the kids depart from school this afternoon, and that is going to be North Decatur Road and Clifton Road to Emory Village. That is going to be impacted as well as they make their way to the campus closures. Emory Village is really going to be impacted. As you see, North Decatur Road is really the main thoroughfare there to get to the church. So a lot of people may be impacted by that. We do understand that a lot of the Emory employees are working remote today just to make the campus as clear as possible as this memorial service gets ready to take way. We're going to take you out live now to the church there on the campus of Emory University. A very special place for the Carters as they made that decision to set up shop back here in Georgia.
Yeah, this is Glenn Memorial United Methodist Church. When the Carters left the White House and moved back home to Georgia, they decided to partner with Emory University, and many people may remember who were around all those years ago that they would host town hall meetings at this church. They would, of course, Jimmy Carter being the headliner, but Mrs. Carter would be there as well. And they would host these town halls, allow students to pepper them with all kinds of questions. And the town halls got so popular that they ended up, having to outgrow this space. But how fitting that they're back here, Mrs. Carter back here for a tribute service, a place that they knew very well, and students knew them there as well.
Joe Ripley is on the ground for us there outside the church, joining us live now. Joe, what are we seeing there? We know this is a private event as the president and first lady gets ready to make their way there to Glenn Memorial.
It is a very private event, Jonathan and Aisha, but still a lot of people in the public spotlight have showed up here to pay their respects, including, we understand, plans are still in place for former President Jimmy Carter himself, Rosalynn's husband, to be here. That is what the family wanted. The family also wanting to respect Rosalynn's wishes and picking out all sorts of parts of this program, from the music to the tributes, the scripture readings as well. A number of dignitaries are set to show up, including every living First Lady, along with President Joe Biden, Vice President Kamala Harris, and a number of First Ladies as well. We also, just moments ago, saw Ambassador Andrew Young here. We saw billionaire Falcons owner and philanthropist Arthur Blank here as well. A number of different people whose lives have been touched here by former First Lady Rosalynn Carter, who set such an exquisite example of what it means to be a First Lady. We're here at Glenn Memorial United Methodist Church here on the campus of Emory University, a place that was near and dear to the Carters. The Carter Center actually started in conjunction with Emory University. This is why this service is being held here today in Atlanta. It's why you're seeing so many people show up. We're starting to see, just dotting the streets here on the outskirts of Emory, a number of people show up to pay their respects, try and get a glimpse of this motorcade, which we understand will be passing through behind us. We understand that out here in front of the church is where the hearse and the honorary pallbearers, which are being comprised of Mrs. Carter's family, will be. So you will see that here outside the church, here out in front. We understand a lot of the other former First Ladies, other dignitaries, former President Bill Clinton as well, expected to show up here today, along with his wife, former First Lady Hillary Clinton. They are taking a side entrance, so we won't see them out in front per se, but I'm sure during the service we will see glimpses of them. And this is just such an honorific day. We will see, just what is in store here in the service behind us. But for now, we will send things back to you as we are about a little over an hour away from the start of this memorial tribute to former First Lady Rosalynn Carter.
All right, Joe Ripley. Joe, that service set to start around 1 o'clock, and as we saw the motorcade making its way from the Carter Center, expected to really get going about noon today.
And we will continue our special live coverage on 11 Alive News back here at noon on air, and we will always continue here on 11 Alive Plus as well. Then
join us tomorrow for the funeral service for former First Lady Rosalynn Carter. That's taking place at 10:30 at Maranatha Baptist Church. That's in the Carter's hometown of Plains. But we'll continue our coverage, and so stick around. In about 15 minutes, we'll see you on 11 Alive News at noon.